You're on a boat. The wood groans, water pours over the side, and the one person who could help is asleep. Not resting, not dozing, asleep. Head on a cushion in the back of the hull, while the sky tears itself apart. That detail alone should stop you, because it changes everything about what happens next. But to understand why, we need to go back to the lake itself. The Sea of Galilee sits in a bowl, deep below sea level, ringed by steep hills on both sides. Warm air climbs up from the valley floor. Cool air slides down from the ridges. And when those two meet, they don't blend. They collide. Winds go from still to violent in minutes. The surface becomes a thing with teeth. Fishermen in the 1st century had no way to see it coming. No signal, no warning. One moment, the water was glass. The next, waves taller than a man crashed over their boats. This wasn't rare, it was routine. The kind of danger you lived with if you worked those waters. So the men in this boat weren't strangers to storms. Several of them had spent their whole lives on this lake. They knew what rough water felt like. They knew how to bail, how to row, how to ride a swell. These weren't soft hands gripping the oars. These were calloused palms that had pulled nets through the dark for years. And yet they panicked. That's worth sitting with. Seasoned men. Men who had faced bad weather dozens of times before, were so afraid they woke their teacher and shouted at him. Not a polite request, a raw, ragged cry. Don't you care that we're dying? That's not a question born from mild concern. That's the voice of people who believe they are about to drown. So what made this storm different? Here's where it gets strange. The word the gospel writer uses for what Jesus did next isn't the word you'd expect. He didn't try and quiet the storm. He didn't calm it. The Greek word means phronos, to rebuke, and the way you'd scold a child or command an enemy. And this same word appears earlier in the same gospel, when Jesus faces something very different. Not wind, not waves, a demon. Same word, same tone, same force. The writer is telling you something with that choice. He's saying the storm isn't just weather. It's a force with intent, being spoken to like a thing that chose to attack. And the voice that silences it is the same voice that drives out darkness from a human soul. One word doing two jobs, storm and spirit, flattened by the same command. Now picture the moment itself. The boat lurches hard to one side. Water crashes in. The men are soaked, muscles burning, screaming over the roar. And Jesus stands up. He doesn't brace himself. He doesn't grab the mast. He speaks, a single phrase, and the wind stops. Not fades, stops. The waves don't slowly shrink. They flatten like a hand pressed down on wrinkled cloth. The silence after must have been deafening. But here's what most people miss about this story. The real storm wasn't on the water. It was inside those men. And that's not just poetry. It's biology. When your brain spots a threat, your body shifts into high gear. Your heart pounds. Your breathing gets fast and shallow. Sweat breaks out on your palms. Your pupils widen. Your thinking narrows. The part of your brain that makes good choices gets pushed aside by the part that screams, survive. Yet, now put that body on a rocking boat, in the dark, with cold water rising around your ankles. Every lurch of the hull feeds the panic. Every wave that breaks over the side confirms what your body already believes. You are going to die. This is the storm nobody talks about. Not the one in the sky, the one in the chest. The disciples weren't just afraid of the water. They were trapped inside their own alarm system. Fear had hijacked their thinking. And it's the same system that fires in you when the phone rings at 2 in the morning, when the doctor pauses too long before speaking, when the news cycle delivers one crisis after the next, and your chest tightens without you knowing why. We live in our own version of that boat. The storms look different now, but the body responds the same way it did thousands of years ago. So when Jesus turns to the men and asks, "Rot, where is your faith?" He's not scolding them for being scared. Fear is automatic. You don't choose it. He's pointing at something deeper. He's asking why the alarm took over fully, why there was no anchor inside them strong enough to hold against the panic. And this is where the story moves from ancient to urgent. Researchers put people inside brain scanners and asked them to focus on images of trust, safety, a presence larger than their fear. And something shifted. The brain's alarm center dialed down, not by a little, by a striking amount. People who practiced holding trust in their minds during a crisis bounced back faster, breathed slower, and made clearer choices than those who tried to fight the fear with logic alone. Think about that. Logic fights fear head-on, like rowing harder in a storm. Trust goes underneath it, like an anchor dropping through dark water until it catches something solid on the bottom. The disciples tried rowing. They tried bailing. They tried every tool they had. None of it worked, because you can't outwork a storm with muscle. The wind doesn't care how hard you pull. But there's a limit to this idea, and it's worth being honest about it. Trust doesn't change the weather. People of deep faith still get sick, still lose jobs, still face waves that don't flatten on command. The story isn't a promise that belief makes you fireproof. It's a claim about what happens inside you when the fire comes. The boat still rocks, the water still rises, but the person standing in the boat is different. Their hands are steadier. Their vision is clearer. They can act instead of react. That's a key difference, and it's one the story doesn't shy away from. Because after the wind dies, the men aren't relieved. They're terrified, a new kind of fear. They look at each other and whisper, "Ooh, who is this?" Even the wind and the waves obey him. They've traded one fear for another. The storm scared their bodies. The calm scared their souls. They were face to face with something they couldn't explain. And that kind of awe has a weight all its own. Some scholars read this entire scene as a teaching tool, a story shaped by the gospel writer to make a point about power and faith, not a record of something that happened on a given night. And that reading has merit. Ancient writers often shaped stories to carry meaning beyond the surface. The details could serve the lesson more than the history. But here's what pushes back against that. The details are too strange to be invented for a lesson. Jesus sleeping on a cushion. The specific word for rebuke, used twice in different settings. The odd shift from fear of the storm to fear of the calm. These aren't the clean lines of a fable. They're the messy edges of memory. The kind of details that survive because someone was there and couldn't forget them. And there's something else. The earliest copies of this passage match the later versions almost word for word. The story didn't drift. It held its shape across centuries of copying. That doesn't prove it happened, but it tells you the people who passed it down treated it as something more than a parable. They treated it as a report. Either way, the lesson lands the same. Artists understood this. For centuries, painters returned to this scene again and again. And they all noticed the same thing. The power isn't in the storm. It's in the stillness after. Flat water, soft light. A boat mirrored on a surface like polished stone. The Hebrew word for that kind of calm doesn't just mean silence. It means wholeness, things put back where they belong. The Greek word carries the same weight. Peace, not as the absence of noise, but as the presence of something complete. That's why the mirror flat water matters. It's not just quiet, it's restored. The chaos didn't just stop, order returned. And that order reaches into the men sitting in the boat. Their heartbeats slowing, their breath deepening, their hands unclenching for the first time in what felt like hours. This is what the story offers. Not a magic spell, not a promise that the wind will always stop when you ask, but a picture of what it looks like when fear meets something larger than itself. When the storm inside and the storm outside are both spoken to by the same voice. You carry your own version of that boat. The job that feels like it's sinking. The bond taking on water. The news you didn't expect. The low hum of dread that you can't quite name but can't quite shake. And the question the story asks isn't whether the storm is real. It is. The question is whether you have something heavier than the fear. Something that drops below the surface and holds. If this story stayed with you, if it shifted something even slightly, there's more waiting. Hit subscribe, because the next story goes even deeper into the moments that changed everything. A man sleeps on a boat in a storm. And the strangest part isn't that the wind obeyed him. It's that he slept at all.